Time to get your knowledge on. You know
What
what I'm saying?
up?
What's up,
going
guys?
on?
Not much. Just another Sunday
Here
with
we
my
are again.
family. Yep. All right. So back to the Grapevine Show. I'm Chris Hughes, Eric Kaiser, Michael Cianfrocco, and it's another Sunday with the HVAC Grapevine, a show where you're lucky if you get one good takeaway. You know what I mean? Like something you can really like go put in your hat and be like, I now know something. But I feel like today is going to be one of those days you may get two or three of those. So, you know,
They might get two or three today.
Come on, man. We're
Yeah.
more than a YouTube
I think
short.
everybody-
Come on.
I think everybody just showed up for the thumbnail today.
You think so?
I think so.
Yeah.
I did.
like-
They were like,
share-
"Whoa, what is that?"
I did share more than normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
What
I
are
mean,
these guys
the
doing?
words when you see the words humidity control, you're like, that's a show I got to watch.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yeah,
what
I
we're
don't think
talking
that's
about.
what they were paying attention to.
Yeah. I think
Why
in
you say
LinkedIn
that,
I
Eric?
put it's
big-
going to be
the
a
big-
sticky episode.
The big green leafy symbol back there. I think everybody's here like, "What are they doing?"
I don't know what you're talking about. It looked like a big maple leaf to me, you know?
That's the new Canadian symbol, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. So, how was your week? Let's hear about it. Oh, awesome. Awesome sauce.
Awesome.
What'd you-
We got like 6 inches of snow here,
Ooh.
Yeah.
and it's melting already. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's
That's horrible.
we're going through the typical winter Louisiana weather where it's cold at night, hot in the day. Cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which is it's all right. I got
That's what we got
leaves.
right now in Florida, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been down in the teens, but it's supposed to be 60 by Wednesday. So,
Ooh.
warming
Yeah.
back up again. Typical spring in the Midwest.
How's the humidity where you live, Eric? Is it humid in the
It's
winter or is it
It's well, depends on what you consider humid, but yeah, the RH is normally pretty well up there outside. Now,
Okay.
indoors, of course, it's generally low because you're talking about colder temperatures outdoor, even though the RH is high.
so are humidifiers pretty common in your market?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, if you look right now, it's 31 degrees outside with an RH of 77. Right, but that's a 24-degree dew point,
Yeah.
so it's dry
I got you.
inside.
Man, if only we had some guests we could bring on who could really talk to us about humidity control.
I think these folks know humidity control like to the next level.
Yeah.
So let's dig into this. I think they know a whole bunch of other stuff too, and I'm gonna take credit or blame for inviting these two on the show tonight because I met them at
At the local dispensary? Oh, okay.
HVAC Tactical Awards,
Tactical.
yeah, and then at AHR this year. So,
All right. Well, why don't you introduce him then, Eric?
all right, well, let's bring them on here. We got with us tonight. We have got Matt and Megan from Mechanical Environments in Colorado, correct?
Correct.
Nice.
Hey, guys.
And you guys do kind of a unique niche business where all you do is cannabis grow facilities, correct?
That's right. All we do is the cannabis indoor agricultural grow business. We do work for the dispensaries as well because they're usually associated with the grows. So, but other than that, cannabis.
Yeah, and that's a completely different world that a lot of us work in with
Yeah.
regards to having to control things and in a changing environment from what I understand. I mean, I don't know a lot about it. So
I don't either. I know very little. I know nothing about weed. Nothing.
Pleading the fifth, huh?
Just for the
Please,
record.
yeah.
For the record. Yeah, because you guys make me feel like I'm not even worthy to be on here because all I do is residential. You guys are like scientists and magicians with all the stuff you guys know.
So
amazing.
Servicing a particular market, that has particular needs. Because the first and obvious one is it's hard to go from a cannabis facility, to a residential environment, right? You're just going to smell, and it's just people complain no matter what, right? So it helps to stay in one avenue, similar to like a restaurant, right? If you smell like a deep fryer, you also probably don't want to go to Mrs. Jones's house, So serving a niche with similar needs, with similar constraints, is
Well,
Makes
if
sense.
Miss Jones lives down in the French Quarter of New Orleans, she probably fries a lot of chicken. So I'm just saying, over here.
The
I'm just
Bernays,
saying,
right?
you
Is that
know,
what they call it?
or
Bernays?
a beignet,
A beignet.
Beignet.
a
Beignet.
beignet. Have y'all
Man.
ever had a beignet? Who
Yeah,
here's had a
one time.
beignet?
I have
Nope.
not, sadly.
I've had a Zeppeli.
Man.
That's about it.
Dang, that's crazy.
I
You know
had
what?
some
I'm gonna
king cake
send you
this
guys
year.
King cake.
send y'all some
There you
beignet
go.
mix.
With the baby
king
out.
cake.
No baby.
No baby.
That's
Yeah.
the good luck, though. Find the baby.
So the baby in a king cake
It's a long story.
is a
Let's
sign
not
of
go there. We don't.
Yeah,
we,
yeah. It's a
we don't
long
have time to
story.
go there.
Okay.
Let's get into
I'll
the thick
reserve
of it.
myself.
We got better. We got better things to talk about.
How'd you guys get started in this? You guys generational into it, or
No, actually, neither of us really had an HVAC background before. And
wow?
cannabis brought Matt into it. And for me, I was doing sales for a distribution parts house. So I was working for a wholesaler.
Oh, cool.
And then I decided to go
Okay.
work for a contractor who was doing this to some extent before, we started our own thing here. But
Gotcha.
Nice.
Cool.
So
I've been
how
in
long
HVAC
have you been doing
Go
this?
ahead, Megan.
well, I've been in HVAC just over 5 years. So I was a TSM for just over 2, worked for a contractor for just over a year, and then we are hitting 2-year mark with mechanical environments. So
Cool.
That's awesome.
Oh, and I just want to let's do a plug for you guys. I just want to throw this out there. If you want to follow Matt and Megan, they have it's mechanical environments. They're on the TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, kind of all the handles from what I understand, right? So if you want to watch, do you guys share a lot of information on those handles about how you handle, the growth of the plant?
Do you guys get flagged for a lot of material?
Yeah.
we often get in Instagram jail. That's
Oh,
we're not gonna
man.
lie
Oh,
about
really?
that,
That's funny.
Yeah, navigating the algorithm is its own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, hey, check out my Christmas trees.
but we do, try to do everything in a very educational manner. Like whether
Yeah.
we're educating somebody else who's trying to learn how to do HVAC for cannabis or a similar market,
Yeah.
or, videos for us to be able to share with our customers. Because we're,
Yeah.
a bunch of our customers follow us and like they can learn something. It's great.
It's
Yeah,
crazy
yeah,
they
for sure.
flag you though, because like you guys are just the mechanics on the job, and it's not
Yeah.
like you're trying to like if I took a video of, if I was a commercial mechanic, I took a video of like some produce or something like that, or I guess if you're in a lab, right? You can't really take videos, if you're in a lab situation. But
Right.
I don't know why they would flag you for that. It's not like you're promoting it,
If there's plants in the frame, it just doesn't perform well. So
Wow.
oftentimes it doesn't like come back as we're flagged, but we'll do a time lapse where you can
Mhm.
definitely tell where we are, and it'll do
Yeah.
terrible.
It's
You
like
know,
no
but
views.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but now if you do a video like on an RTU, it'll perform much better, where we're not
Right.
specifically showing plants, so
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
navigating.
The algorithm's crazy. Johnny Supertech just released a video,
Yeah.
and then we made it a short, and then blows up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A minute and 4 seconds, it tanks.
Do you remember the days of the internet when it first released and there was like videos of like people getting shot in the head? You know what I'm saying? You didn't know if it was real or not because it was brand new. And I'm like brand new to social media. And you're like, holy crap, was that real? Was that not real?
That's
You
the
know,
OG YouTube.
Yeah,
man. That's
that's the-
before
that's
Google
the-
bought it.
That's right. That's before censorship really started
Yeah.
happening.
That's when YouTube was hooked up to the dark web.
Yeah, for sure, man. We rised above it.
So, are you guys considered almost like industrial or more commercial?
I'd say probably in the commercial space, we're similar to like a process load, like you would treat it similar to like a data center where the load is the servers, we're running 24/7, 365. But we're not, a lot of people don't opt for like industrial machine, so we don't have like 3 million BTU monstrosities, right? There's a lot of
Right.
industrial concepts on a budget, so
Yeah.
A lot of residential equipment in these facilities as well.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I figured you guys would be working on rooftop units.
it totally depends, so some people spent the money and other people got their cousin, to build it for super cheap.
Oh yeah.
So it depends on who did it, who designed it, what their priority was.
Get a couple of chucks in the truck, throwing in residential equipment. Everything's a 5-ton, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know
So-
it.
Jenry's favorite size.
Do you guys see a lot of VRV, VRF stuff installed for grow houses?
Not in Colorado. You have to think Colorado's an OG market. Like we've been
It's
around.
the
for 10
Wild
years.
West, baby.
I mean, we're not Oklahoma, but we we do have a lot of older style installs. So basically, we
Right.
took the basement design and we put it on a commercial level, which means
Cool.
5-ton splits a lot of time for days. Like Matt
Yeah.
said, we've got people who spent the money, and we have 52-ton chillers on site and stuff like that. Newer markets, like we do have multi-state operators that we work with, and they've got some VRV systems and stuff like that.
Oh,
So as the
nice.
newer markets come online, newer ownership is coming into play, who actually has money or understands business and that kind of stuff and wants to do it right from the beginning versus
Right.
we'll just build it as cheap as possible, get it going, and we'll change it out in 3 years, which
Yeah.
never happens for the record.
So you guys have seen a lot of sticky coils, a lot of green coils, evap coils.
If you want to see some nasty coils, check out the YouTube page for sure.
Really?
Yeah. I know a guy that will take your old coils for free, and he'll pay for shipping.
Yeah.
Who pays for shipping? Interesting.
I figure there might be a lot of THC on that evap coil.
Yeah.
Mm,
But also the nonsense that they spray, right? So these growers will do
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
they want, right? So we'll brew up some organic compost tea with ground up fish and molasses.
Whoa,
and
really?
go spray it with a paint sprayer because it's got great coverage.
without turning off the equipment, mind you.
No, that's too hard. So
Wow.
whole
Kind of like the sheetrock guys come in the residential. But the
Essentially,
sheetrock
yeah.
dust everywhere. Yeah.
and the cherry on top is you'll show up and they'll say, well, it didn't work really good with filters, so we pulled all those out.
Yeah. Take them out.
We didn't need
Oh
those.
yeah.
If they use filters, there's some facilities that just
Yeah.
will not use a filter.
So everyone's
Yeah,
all over the board. But
crazy.
sometimes the coils will, there'll be this nice like pink, vibrant slime, kind of the similar to what you find in a drain, but it's just taken
Yeah.
over the entire coil.
Like that pink stuff you get in like a shower drain or a toilet.
Mildew.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh man.
So do
Wow.
you typically see on like the higher end systems, what type of filtration are y'all seeing on those installs? Like, is it MERV 13, MERV 16? Do you see HEPA filtration? I mean, what's the Mac Daddy's using?
It depends on the grower, right?
Right.
Where like we try to set good expectations to be like, well, what do you want to filter out? And we can try to design around that. We just had this conversation not too long ago where we were asking one cultivator wanted smoke particles and pollen, and the
Right.
other cultivator wanted to filter out grasshoppers and bumblebees.
Right? Yeah.
So it depends on like the cultivator, where
Yeah.
like their priorities sets like so many parameters
Yeah.
of any cultivation.
You guys could upsell them on those 5-inch filters and just make them ridiculously huge if they're residential.
And
You know?
we do a lot of the April Air media cabinets and the 4-inch
Cool.
filters and the MERV 11s. If,
Yep.
we get a choice, that's what we're adding anytime we get to fix a system of some
Yeah.
sort.
They're like
Yeah.
what I see is like 12-foot long of paper inside that filter. So
Yeah.
I mean,
they
you know,
don't
that-
last a year in a grow though. I can
yeah, in a grow, I can't imagine, dude. Oh my god, especially if they're spraying pesticides,
Yep.
it'll clog up that paper and it'll turn into like a super filter, like probably really quick.
So
Dude, that is nuts.
Matt and Megan shot us over some bullet points to discuss on this show, and I was reading through them earlier, and one that really got my attention was about lights. You guys said the heat load is the lights, right?
Yes.
And you're trying to your whole manual duct design process is to blow air to condition the lights, essentially, because I guess the lights are close to the plants, and so you don't want that heat.
Oh,
I guess
that's tough.
what I'm having a hard time trying to understand is I would think that the lights would be somebody help me out here.
Radiant. They're
yeah.
radiating heat onto the.
It's
so how do
giving
you
off a
control
lot
that
of
radiant heat?
Well, there's the type of light. I mean, we went from
Well, it's
fluorescent light
UV
bulbs to
It's UV, but they're all LEDs now.
I'm
probably.
sure. I'm
That's
sure
true.
they.
Not all LEDs.
I'm
We're
sure they got
mid-
incandescent. Yeah.
Yeah, LED is what I was shooting for. Like I was thinking like not a lot of heat. That's not really an issue, but you're saying it is an issue,
Well,
or it's an issue if it's not LED.
A 5-watt LED bulb doesn't produce a lot of heat, but a 1500-watt LED fixture does produce a lot of heat.
And I've got 200 fixtures in a room. My
Yeah.
sensible load is the lights and the
So
humidifiers in the room.
So there's a
So hold on, we
massive amount of lights
gotta
in a
back
grow
it
room.
up. Back it up. So you guys are doing load calcs too?
Well, yeah. I mean,
That's
so in order
awesome.
to be successful, we have to like set good expectations.
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
We get involved in projects at a lot of different phases, whether it's like in the design and we're kind of helping the engineer get there, or if we show up retroactively and somebody's saying like my facility's not working,
Right.
like let's take this back down to the math. Like, is it possible for it to work before we invest too much time?
Exactly.
You know,
You guys are almost
very
like consultants. That's cool.
We
Yeah,
do a lot of
yeah.
consulting.
So what are you doing? Manual N or manual J? What are you guys using for this?
So not quite, right? So what we're
Custom.
doing is a simple load. The best way to put it is like you put it in and I'll take it out,
Mhm.
right? So because the traditional load, the manual N, because it's like commercial, is going to be like very negligible, right? So a lot of these facilities are a building inside a building, made of
Right.
oftentimes like refrigeration paneling, so our insulation value is great. So inside the space, we're not really concerned with like the roof load or the walls. Ultimately, it'll get there and we'll add 3 tons of cooling, like cool. But in the room, we're going to use 600 to 1,000 watt fixtures, and they'll do 100, 200, 900 fixtures in a room.
So how many BTUs is that, like per fixture?
So we usually, just to keep things simple, we'll convert the wattage to BTU, right? So
Right.
wattage to BTU is
3.412.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And that'll give you kind of like your sensible load. You could argue on that all day, right? People will try to find like a variable factor for if their lights are turned down, or the LEDs aren't as hot. But the counter to that is that the LED is producing the light photon, which is going to hit the plant, and you're going to deal with that heat energy later. It's just not all coming off the ballast.
Right.
So
Okay. That makes
easier
sense.
to calculate expectation load and just like give me the total BTUs that are going into this room,
And just
we're gonna
take it out.
backward them, at 100%, which is when you care the most, of if it's going to work.
What's your design temp?
Depends on the cultivator.
It depends on the
Wow.
cultivator. And we have to
Dude,
design
imagine that, Chris.
We have to design at a couple different ways too, though, because like to really understand what's going on, the cannabis cycle, say if we're taking a basic flower room, lights are on for 12 hours a day and off for 12 hours a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
So, and then there's the moisture to this, right? You've got to feed these plants with water. And then, so is there times where the plants aren't fed with water and the room's dry essentially? And then there's a time where they're feeding the plant heavily with water? Is there does that go through a different cycle, or is it consistent? The plant's always being watered?
So it used to be more the case in the days of like hand watering, right? But as this industry takes off, we're seeing more and more automation systems, right? So it's like just fed by line. So you could pull up your phone and say, feed flower 7, this many gallons at recipe number 8, and it'll just go. So usually during the 12 hours of light on, they're feeding every hour or every 45 minutes to achieve their feed rate.
Wow.
Like,
Now, are they doing like drip watering with that to really control the humidity in the room? Because I imagine if you did just blowing water out through the air, that's going to raise the humidity like crazy. In there.
I was
Yeah,
thinking the
that's what I'm
same thing,
thinking.
Eric. Yeah.
They don't do it for humidity. They do it because they want the max amount of nutrient uptake by that plant per day, right? So anything that comes through the block or through the pot into the tray, right, is in a modern cultivation is waste. It used to be runoff. Depends on the cultivator. Everybody's got their theory, right? Nobody was an expert until 10 years ago. Nobody has a long resume. Everybody's way is the best when you talk to them. So, it's...
Yeah, my way's the best. Listen to me. I'm telling you.
So
I'm sure you get a lot of that. Yeah.
When you say feeding this stuff, so they're not only pumping water through these lines, they're also pumping some kind of nutrients through there as well, some kind of
Miracle Grow. Yeah.
Miracle Grow type solution, some kind of fertilizer to help the plants grow. Wow.
Yes.
Hmm.
And and
Interesting.
there's a ton of different growing styles, right? So what's most common is like a derivative of a hydroponic. So they're feeding all like dissolved nutrients, very inorganic, just right to the plants. But then other people are very like organic, and we have living soils. So there are facilities that have giant soil beds in these rooms, and they're adding moisture to the like you'd have in your backyard inside, even in multiple levels, of just these giant beds. So the cultivator can really steer the ship on what kind of load we're dealing with or what kind of environment we're dealing with.
And then there's ebb and flow systems too.
Well, yeah, that's not as common anymore, but ebb and flow was or other plants are in pots in a little dish, basically, and it would flood, for a few minutes and then dump and come back and flood
and then flow.
dump.
Okay.
Wow.
So
That's
just
cool.
open water
That's
over.
what I would choose. Is that a good one or no?
It is. When you get into it, it's like in the world of plant disease and biosecurity, it's harder to control.
Microbes.
Or plant viruses or pathogens, anything like that.
Man, you guys got some crazy stuff going on. I gotta tell you, Eric, you're picking next week, bro. I gotta give it a Eric.
Yeah.
Dude,
all that
what is
water-
a normal cannabis plant like temperature wise? Like
So
hot, cold?
It goes through phases, right? So cannabis, you basically want to mimic its life cycle, and it'll react to that. So you keep like a mother plant or whatever genetic, if you got your super diesel, whatever, that plant's got to live somewhere under like 24 hours or 18 hours of light. As soon as you change the light cycle to 12/12, it'll start growing flowers. So
you guys are biohacking it. Okay.
So
wow.
In the veg and mom rooms, it's a much more humid environment. We're simulating spring, warmer temperatures, things like that. As you go into flower, we're going to go through like a simulated summer into fall, so.
How the hell are you going to design a unit for that? That's like my nightmare customer. She'd be like, oh, well, I get kind of hot and sticky one day, and the next day I like it dry and cold.
And we got to
how do you design? You'd have to have a VRF. That's nuts.
We absolutely designed for worst case scenario.
You got to throw the kitchen sink at it, bro.
Oh my
You got to have a little bit of everything.
Yeah. I'd have like a 1 ton, a 2 ton, a bunch of resi units there.
Are y'all called back in at different periods of the growth cycle to adjust the controls of the equipment to handle the temperature and relative humidity change during the growth cycle? Does it change throughout the growth cycle, or can you run a baseline and say, hey, we're keeping this room at 78 and 50, and that's just what we're doing. That's the best fit. Or do you have to go back and say, now we need to bring it down to 70 and 50?
Right.
Or the cultivator is the keeper of the Wi-Fi thermostat.
Okay,
Wow.
got you. So y'all, when y'all do a high-end job, is it set up in a way where they have access to the controls and you do it in such a fashion where there's like a book that says, hey, this is how you adjust what you have to, change what you want?
Well, the average cultivators vary on it, right?
Yeah.
So they've been watching hydrometers and temperatures and humidities in their questionably legal training environment for the last 15 years. You know what I mean?
And that's their cash crop too. So they care of it like for a baby, right?
So they care very much, but they'll call you and be like, yo, how do I set my humidity exactly to where I want it on the exact day I want it? So we do train them on how to use it, but they're pretty clever when it comes to knowing like
how to manipulate.
What designs and what manipulations they can do to get what. Because that was the secret sauce. That has been the secret sauce for a long time, is like my environment is controlled in this very particular way. Like I have,
Now, this is kind of not an air conditioning question, but I'm curious. Does the color, I've heard the color of light will change the grow pattern, right? Like if you have like pink light versus white light or whatever. I feel like I watched this on a documentary years
Chris
ago.
is asking for a friend.
Right.
Like,
So
what
I
does
have
this
this
have to-
closet lined with tinfoil. No.
and what does this have to do with HVAC or conditioning the space? I want to know.
Hold on. I'm just trying to know. I'm curious. Does the color of, like, what's the point of the light color changes? Does that change like the intensity level of the plant when people smoke it, or does it change the flavor of it? Like, I'm lost. What's the point of that?
It's a complicated question, you know, that you could get a lot of answers to. But what's generally accepted is that the veg plants are looking more for blue-green spectrums, right? So plants like lettuce and leafy greens are going to do better under lights that contain more of that green and blue, and it's going to translate back to like what color is the light outside in spring and what color is the light outside in fall, because that's what we're doing. We're mimicking planet Earth, which is great at this, but just targeting like a specific environment. We're trying to make it Louisiana during the third week of March, you know, so
Right.
Getting those light spectrums in are going to help to grow plants that grow better in their like native environment, which has more of whatever spectrum color.
So do you guys deal with setting up the lighting and everything too? Or is that part of what you do? Or is that normally somebody else and you guys are just dealing with conditioning the air and conditioning the space?
We're just conditioning the air in the space. So usually somebody's already got their lights picked out. HVAC is always an afterthought, for the record.
Yeah. Well,
always.
Like everywhere else, right?
Everywhere else,
Yeah.
every other
So everyone's
scenario.
always got, you know, their fancy lights, their nutrients, their table layouts, their trays. We're, you know, going to take up every square foot in this room, floor to ceiling, wall to wall for canopy.
Yeah.
Where's the equipment gonna
for
go?
sure.
Yeah, where's the equipment gonna go? Yeah.
Some things never
in the
change,
attic.
guys.
Outside.
Yeah. But Jessica
They're like,
Egan,
you know,
Jessica Egan wants to know about the condensate drain lines. She's the
we'll
drain
get there
line
too.
queen.
That's a great question.
Oh, that is a
You
good
guys get
question.
nasty slime with those?
Out of control slime. So
Number
like,
one issue,
Okay.
condensate drains.
Yeah.
Wow.
But in Denver, it's not really an issue, right? So like before
Right.
we were heavy in cannabis, I would just see pictures from you guys in Florida. Like,
Florida. Yep.
that looks gross. And then getting into cannabis, it's just alive, right? So the
Wow.
environment that they make for plants is great for slime. And
Yeah.
the number one thing to fight back on drain slime is filter bypass, right? Like what the slime feeds on is entering the condensate through filter bypass, right? So the worse the filter bypass is, the worse the slime's going to be. And if there is no filter, it's going to be very,
Did you
very
guys
bad.
watch our episode Slimeonomics?
No, we're going to have to look into that one.
Check it out. Yeah, I'm working with Fallon from Highside Chemicals, and she said some of this bacteria, I sent her a sample.
Yeah.
And she said it's coming from grasses, which is blew my mind.
Interesting.
So I've been working on a chemical with her and spraying the A-coil, and it's been getting me to about 6 months. So I'm pretty happy with it.
We're excited for the product coming out.
Yeah, we did some case studies with BioPipe. You might have ran into them last year at HR.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Great product. It's in PVC that's embedded with zinc to help keep that slime from growing in general.
Nice.
Rector Seal picked up their product, and it will be on the shelves here soon.
Yeah, in a 3/4 inch.
And an inch and a half.
Yeah.
By the end of the year, I
nice.
believe.
We're excited for that. But that had great results.
Great results, like unbelievable results for us.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody had made like a copper and silver rope. I went to go buy it at the distributor. It was like $500.
Whoa.
I don't want to
That's
add more
a bit
to the
pricey.
drain. I mean, I like the
Yeah,
idea.
I'll make a copper drain. You know, I'm not going to buy no silver rope.
Yeah.
PrevClog is working on their own form of a PVC pipe these days too. Just FYI.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
But-
so condensate drains are a huge problem of ours. We've seen
Yeah.
big old
Yeah.
slime monsters fruiting mushrooms and drain lines.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Have
'Cause
you
in
had
addition
any?
to the foliar, there's just so much particulate matter just flying around, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
you got soil, dirt, coconut core, any of the microbes that are on the floor in the pot. And then we dry the plant and process the plant. And so we just have flecks and shards of fresh
Organic material. Yeah.
everywhere. So
A
any
lot
of
of
that
food.
through the filter is just going to feed, these slime organisms.
Yeah.
Now,
Jessica Egan, she wants photos of it. So
No problem.
Well, we got photos for Dave.
you've got a new follower.
Do you have growers who try to use their condensate water to like put it in a sump and then pump that sump water to their plants as a way to like reuse the water?
So in
Or is
California, you have to reclaim your water.
As of
Wow.
recently, we have a couple facilities that have been doing it for a while. A lot of facilities just don't do it, just for the added expense. And
Water's cheap
Yeah.
here in Colorado.
but also, you know,
Gotcha.
I've heard people
Yeah.
be like, well, if I won't drink it, I won't feed it to my plants. You know, so there's
Oh.
a lot of funny
Yeah,
things
extra
that come from the
bacteria
old
that
ways.
goes into the plant. You don't want that.
Well,
But
I was
all
wa-
these
I was
guys are
curious
starting
if-
with like RO water, so they have the means to treat it, but oftentimes that wasn't done preliminary, so we didn't like
Calculate
route
for it.
drains or put an underground sump, you know, to take targets to. Like the infrastructure wasn't thought out, so now like condensate drainage is a huge problem. Like if I have a tip for anybody out there, it's like do not run condensate drains to the plants, right? Like don't just dump it to the grow tray because it's going to re-evaporate and you're going to re-deal with it again and again and again.
Yeah,
But
it's like a
that's
loop.
You just gonna make
often
a
the
circle.
plant.
Yep.
You know, so if you're going to collect your water, you need to know I need to get all of my water to my water processing room, right? So whether that's an
Mhm.
underground tank or all of my condensate needs to make it into the hallway really high or whatever. You know,
Right.
a lot of facilities, it's hard to retrofit that in because
It wasn't planned for.
there was no forethought on how we're going to get all this condensate from 144 pieces of equipment to a central tank. You know,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's
And
wild.
that's being an open system on top of that. So you got to worry about keeping all those lines that are feeding back to the main clean, right? Like if you had a old school steam system and it was a sealed system, you probably never had any problems with clogged lines and stuff like that. But that would be an open system. That'd be a nightmare. Sounds like,
Yeah.
What do? You go start blowing down drain lines and blowing the slime to the water treatment room? Yeah, I mean, yeah, that would be. I could see that being a nightmare.
yeah, but it's coming. It's more and more prevalent. You know, like California, like Megan was saying, California wants to see more water reclamation. You know, down to zero wastewater. So they're
Oh yeah.
they're in
Who's
that
paying
direction.
for it though?
The end user.
You know,
Your
You know,
taxes,
yeah,
man.
yeah. We'll just use RO on everything. You know, like no
but
problem.
they already do. To be fair, you know, so like a lot of these guys, they want RO water, so they'll strip it down to just RO, but that's too
Right.
corrosive for the plants.
Yeah.
Then they'll put
It's
back
toxic.
in like the known levels of like CalMag or whatever gross salts that they wish were there to start with, and then
Right.
send it down the nutrient feed line. So
Yeah.
the means to treat the water are usually on site. It's just getting it back to that main
I mean,
spot.
that's interesting that they're doing RO water. I could see RO water from the aspect of removing all the chemicals like out of
Mhm.
city water, right?
Right.
Because that's
Like
some
the
of that
chlorine.
stuff. Yeah, I'll take all the chlorine and all the other chemicals they put into it out of
Yeah.
there. But RO's
Well,
taking it pretty far down. But yeah, you would have to
Yeah.
add something back in because otherwise that's not very
Yeah.
nutrient rich.
You have to
Exactly.
remineralize the water because the water is just basically toxic. It'll pull minerals away from the soil.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's some minerals still in RO.
Depends on how good your RO
it's
is.
not it's not fully
I'm-
distilled water.
What
But-
does
Right.
RO mean? I must have got lost.
Reverse osmosis. It's a filtration system.
Oh, okay.
The
right.
the
A lot of
military
that-
made it.
A lot of water overkill rules come back downhill from the cannabis testing regulations.
Wow.
It's like there isn't really a lot of products that are tested the way cannabis is tested. You know, where
Wow.
they have to send in samples from every batch to a lab to be chemically analyzed, and
Wow.
any heavy metals is an instant fail, right? And
To
that
Snoop
that
Dogg's
product
address.
is garbage. You know, so they test for microbials, they test for
Oh,
yeast and molds, they test for heavy metals, they test for banned pesticides.
That's good. Yeah.
It's good, but it results in this where like you'd rather be safe than sorry with your starting water source than like
Right.
accidentally introduce arsenic at some minuscule level,
Right.
but it manages to make it to the sample that you sent, and now $100,000 worth of product is
Yeah.
on the line.
Yeah,
So
it's like, why not start with clean water if this is your cash crop?
Yeah,
this is your
just eliminate
livelihood. It's
that.
how you make money. Yeah.
Yep.
It's not
So
a
you guys
hobby.
actually have ventilation requirements at some of these houses? At these plants?
It's quite a complicated
It is very
topic, right? So
complicated.
if it
We
was
can
up
move
to
on
the
to something else.
well, if it was up to the cultivator, they'd be 100% sealed up, right? Like all
Yeah.
of their pathogens come from outside, the bugs from outside, the pollen comes from outside. You know, they just want to seal it up and rely on their filtration to be good.
Yeah.
The authority having jurisdiction believes that there will be cubicles in this space and you will provide fresh
Fresh
air
air.
because there is no provision for cannabis in any of the code books. So it's this
Oh,
butting
yeah.
head.
They're
That
going to have to
happens.
lobby that in. Holy smokes.
It's
No pun
underway,
intended.
but yeah, it's complicated because the end
Wow.
user wants nothing, you know, and they're paying their engineer to design as minimal as possible, and the county's just
So,
like, dude,
so the best way to
pump-
do it would be like a single wide trailer for where the person stays and to help cultivate, and like they go into a warehouse because that's ridiculous to be dumping in fresh air for.
I mean, dude,
Yeah.
we could break and bad this thing. Let's go to Colorado, set up
Let's
shop.
do. Let's go, bro. I'm out.
You know what I'm saying?
and then you have your odor compliance, right, which adds another level
it.
of negative pressure and air pressurization,
Yeah,
which they want to see
we got to get them a DG8.
carbon filtration. Go ahead.
So
Yeah.
odor compliance, meaning you don't want to let your neighbors be smelling all of this, right? So
Correct.
you
Yep.
you don't want the chemicals, you don't want the anything coming back out of that room to your neighbors.
Yeah.
Because if you've got air coming in, you got air coming out. You have to have air coming out somewhere.
Yep. And it's exactly for odor compliance, for not bothering your neighbors. Because cannabis is a new industry, it got slapped with a lot of things that I think people wish were applied to other industries. Like I wish our dog food plant locally
Right?
had some odor compliance, but
It's so bad.
it ain't happening now.
Or that hog slaughter plant down in Georgia that just got hit.
Yeah.
Finally, they've been suing them for 30 years.
So it's big carbon filtration. It ends up at the end of the day being more a dance in compliance than a dance in true odor mitigation, because you have to submit what you're going to do, which means you have a plan that says I'm going to have 12 of these carbon filters and I'm going to change them on these dates,
Oh,
and
wow.
then they'll show up and be like, show me that you changed the filters on the days you said you changed the filters on, so
Really? So they're doing follow up on these places.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
So you can't just like go shut them off after compliance and say,
Yeah.
we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yep. And then they're
So-
also required for supplemental CO2, right? Because in the code book, if you're supplying supplemental CO2, we're supposed to be under, right, a slight negative pressure for life and safety.
Oh, wow. That's right.
Yeah,
you guys
because
are
you're-
dumping
you're-
CO2.
They want to put CO2 in there because the plants like CO2 and they
It helps
expel
them grow.
oxygen. So
So
Yep.
do
And we
you
don't want
have
outside
to?
air.
So
But
do
I
you
thought
have to?
CO2 was bad for the environment. Oh, no.
Well, not for plants. They
I'm
love it.
just messing with all the tree huggers. I'm
So
sorry.
do you have to have a monitoring system for that negative pressure, or can you test it and call it done, or is there like a permanent, meter on the wall, like some type of like Dwyer makes a controller, right, with some inputs and outputs that you could monitor a room to keep it negative. It's not super sensitive, but like it could work in a situation where you're not dealing with like 1 Pascal.
Yeah. A lot of the
didn't know.
monitoring systems take advantage of the or statement at the end that says or of alarm, flashing
Oh.
alarm. Right.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of monitoring systems that will strobe a yellow light, make a really obnoxious noise, and then need an interlock to an exhaust fan, and it'll run in an emergency mode. But as far as like checking up on the negative pressure, most of that is like you put it on the blueprints. We're just going to trust that,
It's done.
that's still happening.
Hmm.
So
Interesting. Reason
That
I
is
asked that.
crazy stuff.
The reason I asked that because I always bust my boss's chops about taking the DG8, right, and making it more into like a tool that could have inputs and outputs, and we can make a constant monitoring manometer that you could permanently install.
yeah.
And
Oh,
You know,
so-
to
so
me,
like
that
a par-
this reminds me of like a paint booth that I helped to set up one time, and we did we're doing custom
Yeah.
controls for this paint booth, but we had to have so much outside air and ventilation air, and we had pressure sensors in there in multiple spots, right? Because you can't just monitor it in one spot.
Mhm.
And all of that was just a custom written program. It sounds to me like that's kind of what this needs is an overarching control system
Yeah.
that, maybe the when you set it up initially, you guys set up the parameters for each step, and the grower just says, nope, we're going to this step, we're going to this step now, and
Right.
give them an easy button.
Right? Yeah. Hit
EPA's
blue and
on
a
the
red.
list for sure. Because we got a couple facilities, so nobody correlates intake air with exhaust air, right? So what we tend to find are huge 12-inch, 14-inch carbon exhaust fans plugged in at full speed with no speed control, right, at the back of the room, and we're just not getting our humidity where we need. So we're letting it run more and more and more and upsizing our fans, and we're not getting this relation, right, to the point where the employees start to quit because when they open the doors, they're worried they're going to get knocked out, right, because our pressures are
No
so out of
way.
control. Like
Damn, what are you guys measuring pressures in inches of water column or pascals?
inches of water. That's why I say the DJ, it's on the list, nicer to be able to quantify better, like how negative is this room, right? How positive is this room?
Yeah.
I mean,
We
if you're
do,
measuring inches of water column, you probably don't even need the DG8. I hate to say
Yeah.
it, Chris. But,
Yeah. Get a
Chris,
field
No,
piece.
Chris
yeah.
is going to smack me right now, but
No,
yeah,
It's like,
that's when everyone knows it's a problem, when the doors swing and open like that.
Well, the other
Yeah,
thing
no.
that correlates a lot with that too is we often find where somebody's furnace can't run in a room because the exhaust is pulling out the air so much that the furnace can't.
it knocks
Light
the
it
pilot right out, huh?
Yep,
Oh yeah,
it's never worked right. Well,
so
like,
they
let's
put
turn off the fan.
they put a non-direct vent furnace in here and
No,
then turn on
it'll-
an exhaust fan.
we'll still
Oh,
beat the
this is
direct
cool.
vent. Be like when we're talking about a 14-inch can fan in a sealed room,
Right.
and just to add icing on the
No
cake,
intake, right?
When we walk around,
So he's running a blower door.
we feel all of these like cold vents coming in at all these outlets and stuff. So we run
Yeah.
around with our spray foam. And we get all these silly little cracks and gaps
cracks.
because all this cold air is coming in for no
Yeah.
reason, right? So we just keep depressurizing to the point where the furnace
Oh my
is the
God.
easiest path.
It is the
Yeah.
Seals
Oh, yeah.
don't matter anymore. We're just under such negative pressure.
There
that
should
it's
be
just
no
not
furnace
gonna
in any of that place.
fit. Yeah.
Dude, I once knew a builder who was pretty intelligent and made kind of the same move. Like, but while his house was under construction, instead of using his blower door as like his, fan to run with all the debris and everything, he would just go to like Home Depot and buy like the $200 big axial fan and just run it
Yeah.
and say, start sealing up the house. Right. Because
Yeah.
it's like, I don't care if this fan goes to crap. It's not my test fan. Smart.
It works.
Yeah.
That's smart.
So
I mean, dude, they're probably getting down to like 80 pascals.
let's talk about like what a process looks like if somebody involves you from the head end, right, to make a really good quality facility. They want to actually do this right. What does that process look like for you guys?
Money.
Well, step one, you need to know how you're going to grow. Do you have a cultivator? Do you have a recipe? Do you have a design? Do you have anything at all? Because if you just show up and you say you want a cannabis facility, we can't help you. Like if you don't know the watts of your lights, the temperatures you're growing at, how much water you're feeding them, I can't help you. I can't design a load for you. I can't even begin to help you.
So that's your biggest thing is watts of the lights and the amount of water going into the facility. Those are the two biggest
And
things you have to
temperatures and
know.
humidities.
Yeah.
And temperature and humidity for your load in the space.
Yes. And I want
That's
your
like
worst
somebody coming to me and say like, "Oh, I'm going to build a house," and I ask them, "Well, what's the windows?" Like, I don't know. One window.
Yeah. And I need to know like your worst
Yeah.
case scenario loads too. So week 8 of flower at lights off, when you're trying to really drive those temperatures down and you want it 60 degrees and 40% humidity, I need to know that. Because
Yeah.
I have to design your entire room to try to reach that point, which means
And that is a
oversize
feat
everything.
in itself. 60
Well, and
degrees.
that's where maybe some of your envelope starts to come into play, but probably not too much if the lights are off.
Well, I think-
Exactly.
Oh, go ahead,
It
guys.
does. The envelope comes into play at night, but the problem is that in order to match our spec'd RTU with a heater package, we're going to be oversized times like 9,000. right? Because that 12.5 ton RTU doesn't come in a 40,000 BTU package. It comes in right 238,000 BTUs, and
Yeah.
it's just gonna cook.
Yeah.
So,
Like
But the plants are also doing a lot of transpiring at night too, so your humidity load's there. You're latent.
yeah.
You know what my brain is thinking while you guys are talking about these situations and these different temperatures? It's like trying to live on Mars.
Yeah.
It's like it's like desert conditions, and it's like you guys, it's all over the place. Yeah, it's like definitely need a computer to run this environment if you really want it done right, or somebody's got to sit there all day pressing buttons like a monkey.
It's funny you say that. There's like a new ASHRAE committee, and like a year ago I went and sat in on it just to go see what it was like. And the committee was put together about how are we going to live in outer space, right? And they're working on they're working on the like standards on what would have to happen if you're going to be in space for like
we got to get the growth standards done right now here. These guys are talking about the Mars.
Well, cannabis its legacy on humanity will be a lot of those things. You know, it's like cannabis is such a bubble cash crop right now that they've driven the market forward on LED research. Faster.
That's right.
Like lettuce wasn't going to fund this, right? Like the pepper market isn't so lucrative. We were going to design new equipment for it. That's like
good point, man.
But now that cannabis has developed all of that, it's starting to go back the other way, right? So it's now that it's proven technology, they'll start to consider, a 2-tier vegetable facility, or putting in some of these higher end spectrums into, pepper production. So like cannabis is affecting a lot of, LED production, new technology for, just like you're saying, for living on Mars.
It's interesting you say that. I had a friend of mine once tell me that the most of the crops that could only survive in indoor growth would be berries, because berries are very expensive, so you could grow those indoors, but like nothing else you could grow indoors and actually be profitable. But I'm sure cannabis you can, right? So like cannabis is making these huge leaps forward in the technology. They're funding that at research. So it will be interesting to see, like you're saying, will other crops now be grown indoors now that they don't have to fund the technology to bring it indoors? Because that's probably the big leap, right? Is we don't want to take this leap and then pour hundreds of thousands of dollars in trying to figure it out and it flops, right? But if it can be proven, they might just jump on the bandwagon and say, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's a really good addition to this conversation. So wonder if we're going to start seeing crops being grown indoors more and more.
I think so.
And will that bring down the price of crops?
Well, it'll bring organic much closer to you.
That's
it's
true.
Like you could have, where's your lettuce come from? Because it could come from that old Kmart that's out of business, that's already got the power infrastructure.
I was just about to say, man, I don't even know. Like I don't even know where my lettuce is coming from. It's a good question.
So it'll help like on the local level, right? Like making sure that a lot of things are closer to you, or you have availability where they don't have to travel. But
I mean, because right now a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, because of the environment they need to grow, get flown in or boated in from all over the world. Because we can't grow them here. We can't grow all of that here in the United States all year round, and all those fresh fruits and vegetables have to have that. So that's an interesting point, that we could be using a lot of that existing infrastructure.
Yeah.
All those empty Kmarts.
I'm just saying, there was a time in my life, and I actually kind of read a book on like hydroponics, and I thought about creating like a grow room, but I wasn't thinking about cannabis. I was thinking about just straight up vegetables and stuff. Like there was a time in my life I was researching that, and I was talking to my wife, and I was like, we should do this.
You got to look at aquaponics, so you have both sides of it.
Yeah. So, what inspired me? Have y'all ever been to Disney World?
Yeah.
Who's here? Mike, you've been to Disney World, right?
The one in Florida?
Of course. Yeah, you live there. The little boat ride when you go through, and they've got the fish, eating at the bottom of the crop, and then they like basically feed the fish back to the plant and all that. Man, that's inspiring. When you see that, you're just like, what?
I did that in my fish tank. I got a 125 gallon, and I think what happened? I think we had like a sweet potato. It was like going on its way out. You know, it's got
Oh,
the
yeah?
roots. I just threw it in the back of the tank, dude, and it just started to shoot up. The roots went all the way in. I had a vine going over the whole tank. It was crazy, but it reaches a limit. It just it spoiled at a certain point. And I was thinking, I was like, how do I take this further? And then,
Yeah,
like you said,
what are you gonna
could
do
go
with this?
deep.
Yeah, what are you gonna do with this weird ass sweet potato now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had to give it the boot, but yeah, aquaponics really interests. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of fish guys they run a separate sump tank underneath the fish tank, and they'll throw LEDs, and you could use that as that's like your natural swamp and filtration.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better than that. Actually, I think I have something in the tank right now. I bought like an ivy. Yeah, it's cool stuff. It really is.
I think I want to take this in a radical change of conversation, right? And
A
that
sativa or indica?
I don't know, but how about security, right? Like you're growing a ton of cannabis in these all over Colorado. What's the theft situation like? Like, how do you? You've got people who work there. Are they getting paid well to manage the crop? I mean, is it lucrative for the
I'm
frontline worker?
going to add even more onto that question, Chris. How do you deal with your employees in that situation?
Oh wow, yeah.
Well, everything happens on camera. Absolutely everything. Because again, this is a brand new market. So any standard you wish you could apply retroactively applies to cannabis. So your camera map was submitted before you were given approval to build. So they also can update and tell you need, newer high def cameras and more of them for gaps in your coverage angles. Right.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Every door is covered. Every
Everything
angle
happens on camera. Right.
That's crazy. And
So I would just walk in there with like a jacket that's like made out of wool and just rub against all the plants.
You'd A, have to ring the bell and be let in. Then B, you'd have to sign in with your badge or driver's license number. Then you could make it through the vestibule where they might ask you to change into their clothes or not.
Like
or
a lab coat.
Lab coat.
Yeah.
Wow.
Security, I mean, it happens. You know what I mean?
That's
If
cool.
you watch, it happens like in action movies though, where like you'll see on the news that somebody like drove a car through the wall, and like a lot of that has got to be inside jobs. You see it on the news where like they took everything the day before harvest day. Like, what's that about? Like how'd you know that? But in general, like everything happens on camera. Everyone's got good security protocols, and it's mandated by like the states.
That's cool.
So, the more important security that's happening is biosecurity, right? So biosecurity is about maintaining the security of the plants, right? So managing pests, managing any sort of diseases, right? The flow of like, how do we not contaminate a crop?
How do we go from room to room?
Yeah, an employee might take a plant from you, and that is going to cost you whatever. But powdery mildew will take a whole crop from you, and that might cost you $100,000, $200,000, $300,000.
Oh my goodness!
So
you're right.
We're more focused on the security for like against bio-invasive, or anything like that than we are on like.
So the drain lines are really. So they're really an issue, the condensate drain lines, because what we saw was a lot of bacteria in those darn things.
Mm-hmm.
So that might reintroduce
that goes back to your filtration and everything that you guys really have to be on design point. Like it goes back to that design. You got to know what you want before you can start with a load calculation.
Yep.
Now, are you guys going in and doing the equipment installation, start to finish on that when you have a partner that wants to work that way?
Yes,
absolutely. There's not a ton of new building that's happening here in Colorado. A lot of it's like a room redoing a room or that kind of stuff, but not a ton of new building.
So a lot of retrofit then, where you're they're going in maybe putting in all new lights or a new grow logic facility basically.
Yeah, lights are definitely getting changed out with the rebate game going on right now. So loads are changing, and it's usually more of a conversation about humidity at this point because their light load got cut in half with the new LEDs that they're putting in.
Are you guys using
Each
dehues?
market, oh yeah, each market is its own environment, right? So it's kind of weird where like it'd be the similar thing of like, okay, plums are illegal, but they're legal in your state, so you can't just ship them in from California where they grow outside, right? You gotta grow your own supply of plums for your own market, right? For your own region, right? So a lot of these, like, we've been legal for 10 years, so we've kind of like the licenses were given out early. There's some play and some movement, but a lot of this infrastructure, like, we've met the demand, so now it's about like consolidation. Some of these places are run very inefficiently. Some people are trying to build an empire.
That's crazy.
So we're at a different phase now where we're 10 years in, we're seeing
smuggling plums to a whole new level of a joke now.
So it's a mature market that now they're really trying to optimize everything, get the most efficiency out of it by making changes, get better control over their crops, things like that.
Oh yeah. In the last 2 years, we've seen the cannabis industry change completely out here, where it used to be a throw money at it game, and now you have to run it as a business. So a facility that might have had 12 people, touching plants now is down to 2.
Wow.
Because they've got their SOPs in line. They've automated versus hand watering.
They're really getting it down packed. That's good. You gotta,
They have to if
it
they
is a
wanna
business.
survive.
But we are doing a lot of like redesigning. So like Megan was saying, LEDs just came into existence at a big scale, right?
Yeah.
So everyone was using high pressure sodium lights in flower for the last 10 plus years because it's been the standard. And nobody likes to change, right? They do what they do. They've known how to do it. They've been doing it for 15 years. Like, don't mess with success.
Right.
It's like residential talk right there.
Those high pressure sodium lights were like 1,000 watts to 1,200 watts.
But the power company came in and basically is just giving away LEDs, right? So they'll pay you for
the grid is that strained where the power company came in.
Well,
that's amazing.
It's also more. Well, it's there's a lot of grant money that you can get your hands on right now for rural development. Like if you're out there and you're in a rural development area, right? There's a lot of money being tossed around for commercial upgrades to bring down the loads. That's a big deal right now. Yeah.
But a lot of these places, they had to pay some like under $1,000 out of pocket to do all their lights. Which is just like, it's free. It's just free at this point.
That's cheap. Yeah.
So a lot of these guys that were hemming and hawing are not thinking about it, and it's a closing door. It's a closing window, right? So you might lose out on this free money. So we've seen just the whole industry in a very short period of time jump on this. Like,
so their loads drop dramatically. So that means a lot of work for you guys. Nice.
It does, unless you retro a 1,200 watt fixture with a 1,200 watt LED, which happens a lot.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Like for like.
Yeah, it's a little different.
But then if you're putting in a 1,200 watt LED, you get a lot more lumen, so you can probably put more plants in there.
Yep, and you're going to increase your load in the end.
You're increasing your load because you're increasing your humidity, which, again, means more work for you guys.
Also sounds like they're getting probably redundancy out of their equipment if they do that, right? Because if they had all this air conditioning to handle this room with all this load and now it gets cut in half or more, well, now they just might have freed up some equipment to kind of role play.
Well, you just described the beginning of a latent removal problem, right? Because now all of our equipment is oversized, and we're just going to bang on and bang off, bang on, bang off.
Yep.
So that's where
well, I agree with you, but I would assume in y'all's situation, y'all's latent removal is all dedicated equipment.
It depends.
Like
it depends.
Okay. I would have thought like dehumidifiers, massive commercial dehumidifiers would be in like a mandatory move in every grow room.
If they opted for the amount of dehumidifiers that the rep told them to buy, you would be correct.
Yeah.
Right. So we own facilities.
It sounds like they got the same customers I got.
Matt, I just want to compliment you, Matt. You just threw out Chris's 2 favorite words. It depends.
Oh, he said it? I missed it.
But he followed it up, though. He followed it up.
He did.
Yeah.
Like they're, these same companies that make residential dehus make the grow dehus, right? So April Air makes with Andon is their line, and Quest is made by
Thermistor,
which is Santa Fe. So they're just the big pint removals, but The grower will submit all of their numbers, the same stuff we're talking about here. Like, tell me how much you're going to water in, what the relative humidity is going to be, so they can reference their deration chart. But then it'll come back and be like, you need 28, 320s.
Because you have to think, like, most of those dehumidifiers are spec'd at 80, 60. So 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 60% relative humidity. Yeah. And, that's early flower or a veg room. Dude, that's not.
These guys have only been in the game for 5 years and they know what they're spec'd for. You guys impress the shit out of me.
They're designing for worst case scenario. And, if the room's hardly ever going to see worst case scenario, because, just like an air conditioner, if there's not enough load in the house, you're not going to get a lot of capacity out.
Yeah.
Right? And same thing with the dehum. You're not going to need all that capacity if you don't have a load.
But going from that 80-60 to a 60-40 is a huge swing on a dehumidifier.
That's completely, that cuts it, what? Nikki was saying it cuts it down a lot less.
Yeah, and depending on the dehumidifier, you might get it stuck in defrost mode. So
I don't even know how I know this information. I've been hanging out with these two guys for too long. I'm like...
Yeah. So do you put in multiple smaller units, or do you try to go with one big unit to do that? Or do you, put in a couple smaller units to be able to stage them?
Eric, there's not a unit big enough to handle a room.
It would need its own room.
Fair enough. All right. Yeah. So you're putting in multiple big units.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. So to give
you
an idea,
this is some cool stuff, man.
Just on one of our bigger flower rooms that we have, it's a 2-tier grow. So there's 2 layers of plants. Yeah. So airflow, there's that problem too.
Yeah.
Floor to ceiling, wall to wall. Mm-hmm. They've got 40 tons in that room. In 5 tons and 5-ton splits and RTUs, and there's 17 dehumidifiers in that room,
and it's underdehumidified.
And it's under dehumidified and
what's the square footage, just roughly?
Ooh, there's 12 racks. 4 feet wide. There's egress on 2 sides.
Is it like the size of like a Costco or a small house?
No. We're talking about like a big master bedroom.
Yeah.
Small. Sounds like 600 square foot, 800 square foot, maybe.
Holy smokes! You got that many DUs on there? Maroon. Woo!
I've ducted some questionable setups because we're just out of space, right? We're out.
Yeah.
How many DUs can we put on 8?
It's a whole wall of tubing.
Right?
What
because the other
I'm going with this comment right here. Thanks, John. You cool dehumidifier in that sucker.
Wow.
They are, and there are some grows that have gone that direction,
I'm with Tom on this. This is where the reheat on the air handlers on a heat recovery going VRV, VRF is where it's at.
A whole other conversation though. We do reheat all day too.
Let's go overtime. Let's do it.
Desert air reheat is going to work a lot better than so Carrier puts out a line of humidizers. I don't know if you ever worked on their built-in reheat dehumidification. Is very popular in Louisiana, where we have swing seasons and light commercial dehu loads. Mm-hmm. The reps love to slap that stuff out there, right? You don't have to buy dehumidifiers if you buy my product.
Right.
But their product doesn't work below 45 degrees outdoor ambient.
Wow.
So, yeah. Gotcha.
There's a big portion of the year where
big disclaimer in there, right?
is not available. And our load did not go anywhere. Our load is consistent, all year round. So
which also speaks to the volumes of the engineers that are doing these jobs.
So we need some engineers to give you guys a call, or you guys are just gonna keep kicking?
Honestly, in my career on the HVAC side of things, I worked with one engineer that actually knew what he was doing.
Oh, cool. So you guys got
everybody else is drawing boxes on a paper and calling it a day.
Yeah.
So we're at time, but I have a question for y'all. Something that I want to hear y'all's advice maybe to some of the people who are watching, because this is something we talk a lot about. I see in the room and gets chatted on. You said you kind of consult. I'm assuming in y'all's level, y'all get paid for that consulting time. I would like to hear y'all's advice on how you've approached the market, approach your clients how do you set yourself up for success to charge for your consulting time? Does that make sense?
I would say a lot of it is understanding your niche, right? Because if you're a jack of all trades, who wants your advice? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So a lot of these problems that we run into them very often, which makes I'd like to think it valuable to, you know, have a discussion with us about it. We also bring an element of like, we do a ton of service work. So when we're talking about blueprints, I can tell you that my ladder is not going to fit, you know, right in this little zone here. And, you know, experience and just understanding your market. I think that being a consultant means that you're good at, you know, like a thing, you know, that you have a very narrow window, because no one can know everything, but you can be a little bit more expert in a small region of things.
Yeah.
So do you charge, I guess what I'm getting at is when someone calls you and they, you know, they need consulting, like, hey, is this going to work? Is that going to work? They're kind of wanting you to play the mediator between the engineer's design and, hey, you might get the job, you might not, but I need some help bringing this full circle. Like that's your brain work that you're going to throw to that project. Do you have like a line card, an hourly rate, a set something that says, if I'm coming in to consult, this is what it costs to get you over the hill?
There is a lot of what we can head off a lot in like an hour. You know what I mean? So a lot of these projects, we like to just start with like a 1 hour video call, which is available on our website, you know, to like, whether you're the engineer and you're looking to see like, is what I'm designing even remotely right? Or we've had a lot of places where, you know, it's an investment guy. He doesn't really know what he's doing. We got a lot of quotes, you know, before we break ground, like, do these prints look legit? Like, am I just getting taken for a ride? You
Being
know, like,
told he can make $7 million in his first year.
yeah.
Starting to
yeah.
question it.
So, you know, we'll spend 20 minutes kind of going over what's in there, you know, like what the numbers look like. Yeah. Like what service is going to look like, how, and again, our load calculations are about setting expectations. Like, does the equipment on your plan meet your anticipated grow style? You know, because if not, it's not going to be a good time.
Yeah.
Interesting. You said video call. I have yet to hear anybody kind of mention that. That's a really good idea for the HVAC trade in general. Like if you've got a client, you got a project.
That's good.
Yeah. Like instead of traveling, because we all know to run a truck costs money, right? But if you could have a video call with that potential client and you're giving them, let's just say 20, 30 minutes on a video call and you didn't have to leave your office. That's maybe something you could either give away for free or charge for, but you don't have to run a truck. You don't have to leave your duties of what you were doing. You could break away easily, do the video call and come back. I like that.
Yeah.
That's smart business.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then,
I got a weird question though.
Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of the caretakers you see like on site, like the guys that take care of the everyday stuff, a lot of the guys look like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
You'd be surprised. You actually see all aspects of people. Like there's some total nerd looking guys out there that are the smartest people, you know,
like straight, like half an engineer. Yeah. Just like water.
Some of them. Yeah, absolutely. Not all facilities are the same. Like some people care on a whole nother level than others do.
Yeah. Some people, they'll sit you down in front of their laptop and be like, let's please review this graph. You know, and other places like, bro, it's like really hot in there. If you could figure that out, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
You know, opposite.
Yep.
I mean, for us working in the existing market space, nothing's better than for us than to be able to walk into a facility we've never seen before. Because we can point out so many issues within 5 minutes of being there. You know, like we need to address this. I mean, just condensate P traps alone.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
Quest requires an 8 to 10 inch P trap on their units for their motors. Like, and nobody puts a P trap, or it's just a standard, you know, from the store P trap size. Yep. Low 1 incher. And it's like,
good.
No wonder it's, you know, flooding out your unit and it's never worked right. And the last contractor drilled a hole in the bottom and put it.
Well, you got to pull that filter out.
And we pulled the filter out, you know. Yeah.
Pull the filter out and fix the whole draining problem. No problem. No big deal.
We pull that filter out, man. Problem solved. Yeah.
I feel like this is a huge niche in HVAC that like really nobody talks about. I'm really glad you guys came on. Like,
Appreciate you guys.
I can see somebody saying like, hey, do you want to do residential, you know, the normal commercial? Do you want to do refrigerators, or you could do like what you guys do? It's like a whole different separate niche.
Absolutely. Right, and you absolutely have to be 21 because you got to be able to sign in.
Right.
So,
that's true.
And in Colorado, they have a badge system. So you go through a federal background check, all that. We
Wow.
don't technically need a badge to service these facilities. We do it for our customers because as an unescorted person in their facility, they can be charged like $10,000 or something if we're caught unattended.
Wow.
Dang.
So this allows us to run freely through their facilities, but every state's differently. So
Yeah.
there's different rules and regulations.
That is cool, man.
That is an interesting story you guys have shared with us tonight.
I don't
Yeah,
even feel like
so-
we talked about load calcs.
Well, we went down some really weird roads
Yeah.
here tonight, I think, but it's been
but-
fun,
but
guys. I appreciate
That's
you
the
coming on.
grapevine, though, you know?
It's a great time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
So just to reiterate, if you want to watch and learn more from Matt and Megan, check them out. Mechanical Environments, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn,
Instagram.
name it. They're there. Instagram.
Look for
All
them,
right.
find them.
Yep. Check
Good,
them
good
out.
job, Eric. Good job.
Yep.
Hey,
All right,
you
you
know, you
guys-
meet some awesome people at walking around at these shows once in a while, right?
I'm just going
There you
every
go.
time he books a flight, I'm just going to follow Eric around the whole world. That's it. I'm going to be your shadow.
Thanks,
All right.
thanks guys for coming on, and
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
That was a
stick
great
around
time.
for a second after the show.